We're going to move on now to our second speaker, Ghada Karmi. Welcome, Ghada. And Ghada Karmi is a British Palestinian doctor who was expelled by the Zionist militias in 1948 from her home in Jerusalem, and is author of the book One State, the Only Democratic Future. Welcome, Ghada.
Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone watching this webinar. I want to start by saying how horrible the last 12 months have been for Palestinians and their friends. We never thought, look, I'm somebody who never had any illusions about the nature of the state of Israel. But even I have been horrified, devastated by the extreme brutality and savagery that we've seen in the last year against the Palestinian people. But the last year, of course, it was not just an expose of Israeli brutality. It was also a time in which masks fell from the faces of those hypocrites and liars who have misled so many people in the Middle East and in Europe and in the West. I'm thinking of the way that despite Israel's brutality, despite the fact that it is committing collective punishment, that it is in breach of every kind of international law and every kind of human rights norm, despite all that, it still enjoys support from the United States and other Western European countries. And one has to really try to understand not only that that is the case, but that this is very meaningful. And it puts paid to the idea that any of these pronouncements on the part of Western governments, which many Palestinians fell for, I think, and many other people also fell for, about a future Palestinian state, about supporting Palestinian right to self-determination, it's really exposed these as completely hollow. So it seems to me that apart from the brutality and the horror of the last year, we need to look at some lessons that we've learned. And so the first lesson is the one about hypocrisy, which I just mentioned. The second lesson is to do with complicity and the thing that we have to face, that the whole international system of law, of human rights, of decent behavior has been overturned. We know now that the very states of America and Britain, which were responsible for the creation of what we now consider international law, the creation of the notion of humanitarian law and norms of international behavior, the world order, if you like. These very states, which are responsible for that, when they met after the end of the Second World War, they are the very states that are actively acting to promote the destruction of these very same laws. So unfortunately, we don't have time to go into why Israel is so important to the West. It's so that it leads Western states to lose their not only reputations, but their money and their arms to support this Zionist project. So where are we heading with all this? Well, I terribly fear that in the short term, we're going to see things get much, much worse before they might improve. I say that because I am convinced that Israel has a fantasy in which it believes that this is the moment it's been waiting for. This is the opportunity of a lifetime where it will destroy all its enemies. So first, it started with trying to defeat Hamas and destroying Gaza, and currently doing the same with the West Bank. Now it's moved on to Lebanon, where its fantasy tells it that it can destroy Hezbollah. And the next on the list is Iran. And I have no doubt that is where we're heading. I don't think that wiser counsels will prevail. The Americans will help Israel, will back Israel when it comes to it. And the Israelis are gung-ho because, as I said, they can't believe their luck. And they're certainly not going to pass up this opportunity. I was very interested that the ground is already being prepared in the West. Today, you will have heard about MI5's warning that Iran has all sorts of ill intentions and evil designs with regard to this country. Well, of course, I don't believe that. I believe that this is part of the way you prepare the ground for Iran being the enemy. And therefore, if you bomb it and do a lot of damage, then you're justified. So I think that's part of it. All right, so let us suppose, let's follow the fantasy. Suppose Israel is successful. Suppose it really does smite all its enemies. What's the end game of this? I often ask myself, do Israelis never ever ask themselves, what would be left in the region? Who would be the people in the Middle East region who would not hate Israel, who would not be angry, who would wait to plot and plan against the Israelis, and who would be determined to destroy the Israeli state? That seems to me to be obvious, but the Israelis don't think about that. So let me move on to the very important other discovery that the world has seen and we Palestinians understand very well. The last year has shown us that it is not just the government of Israel. We have to worry about the Israeli population, the Israeli Jewish population, which has supported its government in the genocidal war all the time, and even now, which we know from polls that have been taken, do not consider the Palestinians at all in this, that Palestinians have any rights, that they are human, that they are even human. The Israeli Jewish population is of that view. So, you know, that poses another question about the future. I've always believed that the only possible outcome to this disaster is the creation of a democratic state in which the people between the river and the sea will live together in equality with equal citizenship, and that those people we know will be partly Palestinian Arabs and partly Jewish Israelis, as well as some other small minorities. That is the aim I've always had. It's the aim I've always wanted to work towards. However, for the first time, I've really begun to question something which may shock you. I really wonder if what we've seen from the Jewish Israeli population in this last year is one that would encourage Palestinians to imagine or to tolerate the idea of sharing the country of Palestine with people who feel like this. So I think in my concluding remarks, what I want to say is that, number one, the democratic one state in which there are equal rights and equal citizenship for everybody is the only possible destination there is for this tragedy, number one. Number two, it is the only possible way out of the Palestinian tragedy of not only being under Israeli occupation, but being in exile like me or living in refugee camps. The only possible way forward for all these groups of Palestinians is to go home. And the only home they will have will be a democratic state for its citizens. So that's the second. But the third point, which is really very clear, is that the current Jewish Israeli population and those who wish them well need to understand that they have to cast aside ideas of supremacy, of dominance, of superior rights, of the fact that the Arabs around them, the Palestinians, the Arabs, the other Arabs are inferior. They have to get rid of this mentality. Otherwise, we don't want them. And quite frankly, I don't think anybody in the world wants them. And it seems to me that this is a really urgent matter for those of us who care about the future to disseminate this idea, for people to start to try to understand that what has been created in Israel is not just a settler colony which occupies other people's lands, but what has been created is a particular mentality and a mindset which makes of the people who have that mindset a collective that no one really can live with. I want to end on that note, and I welcome any questions about what I've said.